Right now, as you listen to this sentence, your brain is firing approximately 6,000 thoughts per day. That is not a metaphor. That is the finding from a 2020 study published in Nature Communications by researchers at Queen's University in Canada. 6,000 individual thought worms crawling through your skull between the time you wake up and the time you collapse into bed. And here is the part that should genuinely disturb you. Roughly 80% of those thoughts are not useful. They are not strategic. They are not creative. They are recycled noise from yesterday's stress, someone else's emergency, and a future that does not exist yet. You are not listening to this audiobook because your life is easy. You are listening because something inside you is screaming and you cannot figure out how to make it stop. You have tried the apps. You have tried the morning routines. You have probably tried meditating for 7 minutes while your phone buzzed on the nightstand with 14 unread Slack messages. And here you are, still wired, still running, still wondering why the exhaustion does not go away even when you take a weekend off. Let me be direct with you. This book is not going to tell you to relax. This book is not going to tell you to breathe deeply, light a candle, or find your inner peace. What this book is going to do is show you, with precision, exactly what you are carrying that you were never designed to carry, and then it is going to show you how to put it down. Not gently, deliberately. Because here is the truth nobody in the self-help industry wants to admit. Your mind is not loud because something is wrong with you. Your mind is loud because it is overloaded. There is a difference. A massive, critical, life-altering difference. And once you understand it, everything changes. Let me give you a picture. Imagine you are carrying a backpack. Inside that backpack is every open decision you have not made, every notification you checked but did not resolve, every conversation you replayed 3 times, every plan you announced but did not start, every comparison you made on social media at 2 in the morning, and every expectation you absorbed from a parent, a boss, a partner, or a culture that never once asked you what you actually wanted. That backpack is not heavy because of one thing. It is heavy because of everything. And you have been wearing it so long, you forgot it was there. You think the weight is you. It is not. It is what you are carrying. Now here is where it gets dangerous. A 2019 study from the American Institute of Stress found that 77% of people regularly experience physical symptoms caused by psychological stress, not emotional symptoms. Physical, chest tightness, jaw clenching, chronic headaches, digestive issues. Your body is screaming at you in the only language it has, and you keep telling it to be quiet so you can finish your to-do list. And the real trap, the invisible one, is this. You keep trying to fix the overload by adding more productivity tools, more optimization hacks, more morning rituals, more courses, more podcasts, more input. You are treating a house fire by throwing firewood at it. Let me tell you what the average person does when their mind gets loud. They add another app. They add another goal. They add another commitment they will break in 9 days. They open another browser tab of possibility and leave it open alongside 47 others. Now let me tell you what elite performers do. They subtract. They eliminate. They audit what is in the backpack, and they throw out everything that does not directly serve who they are becoming. Not who they were. Not who other people want them to be. Who they are becoming. That is the first fracture line between people who burn out and people who break through. Burnout is not caused by working hard. If it were, every construction worker on Earth would be in a psych ward. Burnout is caused by carrying cognitive weight that produces no return. It is mental debt. And just like financial debt, if you do not pay attention to the interest, it compounds until it owns you. Stanford University's Dr. Robert Sapolsky, a neuroendocrinologist who spent over 30 years studying stress in primates and humans, demonstrated something remarkable. Chronic psychological stress, the kind produced not by a lion chasing you, but by an email you are afraid to open, triggers the same cortisol cascade as physical danger. Your body does not distinguish between a genuine threat and a mental one. So when you carry 37 unresolved microstressors through your Tuesday, your nervous system responds as if you are in active combat. All day, every day, without a ceasefire. And you wonder why you are tired. You are not tired because you worked 8 hours. You are tired because your nervous system ran a marathon while your body sat in a chair. This is why rest does not fix it. This is why a vacation does not fix it. This is why sleeping 10 hours still leaves you waking up exhausted. Because the weight is still in the backpack. You did not unpack it. You just lay down with it on. Here is an uncomfortable number for you. According to research published in the journal Psychological Science, the average professional makes approximately 35,000 decisions per day. Not major ones, micro ones. What to wear, what to eat, which email to open first, whether to respond now or later, whether to say yes to that meeting or claim you are busy. Each one of those micro decisions pulls from a limited reservoir of cognitive energy. That reservoir was not designed for modern life. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, judgment, and self-regulation, evolved for a world with maybe 50 decisions a day, not 35,000. And once that reservoir drains, you do not just get tired. You get reckless. You get impulsive. You snap at people who do not deserve it. You choose the fast food over the meal prep. You scroll instead of sleep. You hit snooze instead of getting up. You become a different person, not because you are weak, because your system is empty. The average person does not realize this is happening. They blame themselves. They say things like, "I just need more discipline." They set another alarm. They buy another planner. They white-knuckle their way through one more day. And the backpack gets heavier. The elite, the ones operating at sustained high performance without collapsing, they do something radically different. They do not manage the overload. They prevent it. They design their environment, their inputs, their decisions, and their commitments so that the backpack never gets full in the first place. They treat mental load like a budget, and they refuse to go into debt. This audiobook is the blueprint for becoming that person. Not through motivation, not through inspiration, through architecture, through understanding at a neurological level exactly what is making your mind loud, and then systematically, methodically, ruthlessly removing it. In the chapters ahead, you are going to learn things that will make you uncomfortable. You will learn that hitting snooze is not laziness. It is an identity crisis. You will learn that telling people your goals actually destroys your chances of achieving them, and there is hard science to prove it. You will learn that your mood is the worst possible advisor you could consult for any decision that matters. You will learn how to build a decision architecture so clean that your brain stops burning fuel on garbage. You will learn why small wins are not motivational fluff, but measurable neurochemistry. And in the final chapter, you will stand in front of a mirror and you will see the truth. But here is what I need you to understand right now, before we go any further. This is not a book about doing less. This is a book about carrying less. Those are two completely different things. You can do extraordinary work, build extraordinary things, live an extraordinary life, but only if your mind is not buried under weight that has nothing to do with any of it. Drop the weight or burn out. There is no third option. And in the next chapter, we are going to start with the first 5 seconds of your morning, because what happens when that alarm goes off is not what you think it is. It is not about discipline. It is about something far deeper. And it is quietly programming your entire day before your feet ever touch the floor. Chapter 2. The Snooze Button War. You lost the entire day before your feet hit the floor. That is not an exaggeration. That is neuroscience. And by the time you finish this chapter, you will never look at your alarm clock the same way again. Here is what happened this morning. Your alarm went off. Maybe it was 5:30. Maybe it was 7. It does not matter. What matters is the next 5 seconds. Because in those 5 seconds, your brain ran a calculation faster than any supercomputer on the planet. It weighed comfort against commitment. It measured how you felt against what you said you would do. And then it made a decision. Not a small decision. The first decision. The one that sets the neurological tone for every decision that follows it for the rest of the day. And if you hit snooze, here is the message your brain received, translated from neurochemistry into plain language. I'm the kind of person who chooses how I feel right now over who I said I would become. That is not dramatic. That is the prefrontal cortex logging data. Your brain does not hear your alarm and think about time management. It processes identity. Am I the person who gets up or the person who delays? Am I the person who keeps promises to myself or the person who renegotiates them the moment discomfort arrives. A 2022 study published in the Journal of Sleep Research examined over 400 participants and found that habitual snooze button users reported higher levels of morning grogginess, increased daytime fatigue, and notably worse cognitive performance in the first 2 hours after waking compared to those who got up on the first alarm. But here is the finding that matters most for you. The cognitive penalty was not caused by less sleep. It was caused by fragmented sleep. Those 9-minute snooze intervals throw your brain back into the beginning of a sleep cycle it cannot finish. You are literally worse off than if you had slept less but gotten up cleanly. But that is the biology. The real damage is psychological. Let me explain something that almost no productivity book will tell you. Every single morning, before you brush your teeth, before you check your phone, before you think a single conscious thought about your goals or your responsibilities, your brain is running an identity audit. It is asking one question. Based on the evidence, who is this person? And the evidence it collects is not your vision board. It is not your journal entry from last Sunday. It is your behavior, right now, in this moment, under these conditions. That is the data your subconscious trusts. Not what you said, what you did. So when you hit snooze, the audit returns a verdict. And that verdict carries forward. It shows up in the meeting where you hesitate to speak. It shows up in the email you rewrite 4 times because you do not trust your own judgment. It shows up at 9 o'clock at night when you are scrolling instead of sleeping, because a person who broke a promise to themselves at 6 in the morning has no foundation to keep a promise to themselves at 9 at night. The architecture collapses, not because of one snooze, because of what that snooze represents. Now, I need you to hear this clearly. I am not telling you to wake up at 4 in the morning. This is not that book. I do not care what time you wake up. I care about what happens in the 5 seconds after your alarm goes off. Because those 5 seconds are the first place where mood fights identity. And mood always lies. Here is how most people operate. The alarm sounds. They feel tired. The feeling becomes the decision. Tired equals snooze. Anxious equals avoidance. Unmotivated equals delay. They let the sensation in their body dictate the direction of their life. And they do this so automatically, so reflexively, that they do not even realize a decision was made. It feels like the snooze button pressed itself. That is the average pattern. Feel first, decide second. Now here is what the elite do. And when I say elite, I am not talking about billionaires or Navy SEALs. I am talking about any person who sustains high performance over years without burning out. Their alarm goes off. They also feel tired. Their body also says stay in bed. But they do not consult their mood. They consult their identity. They do not ask, how do I feel? They ask, who did I decide to be? And then they act from that answer. Not from the feeling. From the decision they already made the night before, the week before, maybe the year before, about the kind of person they are building. Dr. Benjamin Hardy, organizational psychologist and researcher at Clemson University, calls this the gap between your current self and your future self. His research, published in collaboration with Dr. Hal Hirschfield at UCLA, demonstrates that people who make decisions based on their future identity rather than their present emotion are significantly more likely to follow through on long-term goals, maintain consistent habits, and report higher life satisfaction. The mechanism is not willpower. It is alignment. When your action matches your declared identity, there is no internal friction. The decision costs almost nothing. When your action contradicts your identity, every step is a war. This is why discipline feels so exhausting for most people. They are fighting themselves. They are trying to force a behavior that does not match who they believe they are. And the brain resists that mismatch with everything it has. It sends fatigue. It sends rationalization. It sends the very convincing thought that says, you deserve to rest. You worked hard yesterday. One more snooze will not matter. That voice is not lazy. That voice is your brain protecting the current identity from disruption. Change threatens the system, and the system fights back at the earliest possible moment, which is the alarm clock. So here is the protocol, and it is brutally simple. Tonight, before you go to sleep, you are going to make one decision. Not a goal, not a plan, a declaration. You are going to define, in one sentence, who you are becoming. Not who you wish you were, Not who you think you should be. Who you are building, starting now. Write it down if you want. Say it out loud if that works. But make it specific. I am the kind of person who gets up when the alarm goes off. That is it. That is the entire first protocol. And tomorrow morning, when the alarm fires and your body screams for 9 more minutes, you are not going to argue with the feeling. You are not going to use motivation. You are not going to count to 5. You are going to ask one question. Is the person I declared last night someone who hit snooze? If the answer is no, your feet hit the floor. The feeling does not get a vote. This is not about the morning. This is about retraining your brain to understand that identity outranks emotion. That who you are is not determined by how you feel. This one shift, practiced daily, will change more about your mental load than any meditation app, any productivity system, and any motivational speech you have ever consumed. Because it addresses the root, not the symptom. And here is the part that connects directly to your mental overload. Every time you make a decision based on mood, your brain opens a conflict loop. It runs the argument. Should I or should I not? The loop consumes energy. It creates noise. It adds weight to the backpack we talked about in Chapter 1. But when you make a decision based on identity, the loop never opens. There is no argument. There is no negotiation. The identity answered the question before the question was asked. The noise does not get generated. The weight does not get added. That is how elite performers keep their minds quiet. Not by silencing thoughts, by preventing the conflicts that create them in the first place. Congratulations. You now understand something that 95% of people will never learn from a productivity book. The first 5 seconds of your day are not about waking up. They are about deciding who you are. And that decision echoes through every hour that follows. But here is what comes next, and it is going to challenge everything you think you know about being busy. Because while the snooze button is the first battle, there is a much bigger war happening every single day inside your skull. You are making 35,000 decisions before dinner, and your brain was built for a fraction of that number. In the next chapter, you are going to learn exactly why you are not tired from working. You are tired from deciding, and that difference will change how you structure your entire life. Chapter 3. You're not tired. You're making too many decisions. 35,000. That is not a guess. That is not a motivational number someone made up to sell a seminar. That is the estimated number of remotely conscious decisions an average adult makes in a single day. According to research from Cornell University's Food and Brand Lab, 35,000 choices. In your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain doing the heavy lifting on every single one of them, was engineered for a world where you might make 50. Let that land for a second. Your brain's executive function is running at roughly 700 times its design capacity every single day, and you are wondering why you feel destroyed by dinner. You are not tired from working. You are tired from deciding. And until you understand the difference, no amount of sleep, no vacation, no supplement, and no motivational podcast will fix what is happening inside your skull. Here is how decision fatigue actually works at a neurological level. Every decision you make, whether it is choosing what to eat for breakfast or deciding whether to accept a new project, draws from the same limited pool of cognitive fuel. Neuroscientists call this executive function. Psychologist Roy Baumeister at Florida State University spent over 2 decades studying it, and his research on ego depletion demonstrated something that should alarm every ambitious person listening to this. Willpower, self-control, and decision quality all share the same battery. Use it on small things in the morning, and you have less of it for big things in the afternoon. The battery does not care what drains it. It just drains. This is not theory. This has been demonstrated in one of the most famous real-world studies ever conducted on decision-making. In 2011, researchers Shai Danziger, Jonathan Levov, and Leora of Peso published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that analyzed more than 1,100 judicial rulings by Israeli parole board judges. What they found was staggering. At the start of the day, judges granted parole approximately 65% of the time. By late morning, that number plummeted to nearly zero. Not because the prisoners changed, not because the cases were weaker, because the judges were cognitively spent. Their decision-making battery was empty. And when the battery is empty, the brain defaults to the easiest option. In the courtroom, the easiest option was to deny parole. In your life, the easiest option is whatever requires the least thought. The junk food, the mindless scroll, the snooze button, the meeting you should decline but accept because saying no takes more cognitive effort than saying yes. After a food break, the judge's parole approval rate shot back up to 65%. Same judges, same prisoners, same laws, different battery level. That is not justice. That is neurochemistry, and it is running your life whether you acknowledge it or not. Now apply this to your day. You wake up. Before you leave the house, you have already decided what to wear, what to eat, whether to check email, which email to open first, whether to respond now or later, whether to take the highway or surface streets, whether to stop for coffee, what size to order. You have burned through dozens of decisions, and you have not done a single minute of meaningful work yet. By the time you sit at your desk, you have the cognitive equivalent of a phone at 40% battery. And then you open your laptop, and the real decisions begin. Priorities, deadlines, people, money, strategy, and you are trying to run all of that on a half-charged brain. This is why your best ideas come in the shower. This is why you suddenly feel clear at midnight. It is not because the shower is magical or because you are secretly a night owl. It is because in those moments, you are not making decisions. The stream of micro-choices has paused, and for the first time all day, your prefrontal cortex has enough bandwidth to actually think. Here is where the average person and the elite performer diverge so sharply, it is almost two different species. The average professional treats every decision as equal. What to have for lunch gets the same cognitive processing as whether to pivot their business strategy. They spend 11 minutes deciding which restaurant to order from on a delivery app, and then they try to write a critical report with whatever mental fuel is left. They budget their money, but they refuse to budget their decisions. And so the most important choices of their day get the worst version of their brain. Elite performers do the opposite. They ruthlessly eliminate low-value decisions so they can invest their full cognitive capacity into the ones that actually matter. This is not speculation. This is documented behavior. When researchers at Harvard Business Review analyzed the daily routines of over 500 senior executives in 2018, they found a consistent pattern among the highest performers. These leaders had reduced their daily discretionary decisions by an average of 40% compared to their peers. Not because they were less engaged, because they had automated, delegated, or pre-decided everything that did not require their highest level thinking. You have heard the stories. Steve Jobs wore the same black turtleneck. Mark Zuckerberg wears the same gray shirt. Barack Obama wore only blue or gray suits during his presidency and openly stated the reason. I am trying to pare down decisions. I do not want to make decisions about what I am eating or wearing because I have too many other decisions to make. That is not eccentric behavior. That is decision architecture. And it is one of the most underutilized strategies for mental clarity that exists. But it goes far beyond clothing. Decision architecture means building your life so that the choices that do not matter are already made, freeing your brain to operate at full power on the choices that do. Let me give you the framework. There are 3 categories of decisions in your life, and you need to treat each one differently. The first category is eliminable decisions. These are choices that should not exist at all. What to wear tomorrow? What to eat for your 3 standard weekday meals? Which route to take to work? Whether to check social media before 9 in the morning? Eliminate these by making the decision once and automating it permanently. Lay out clothes the night before. Meal prep on Sunday. Set a route. Delete the apps from your home screen. Each eliminated decision is cognitive fuel returned to the reservoir. The second category is batchable decisions. These are choices that are necessary but do not need to happen in real time. Responding to non-urgent emails, scheduling meetings, handling administrative tasks, reviewing reports. Batch these into specific windows. Process email twice a day, not 47 times. Schedule all meetings on 2 days instead of scattering them across 5. Every time you batch, you reduce the context-switching tax, which a 2023 study from the University of California, Irvine estimated costs an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds of refocusing time every time you shift between tasks. The third category is protected decisions. These are the choices that actually determine the trajectory of your career, your health, your relationships, and your life. Strategy, creative work, hard conversations, long-term planning. These decisions must be made when your cognitive battery is at its peak, which for most people means the first 2 to 3 hours after waking. Guard this window like your life depends on it. Because in a very real neurological sense, it does. Here is the shift I need you to make. Stop treating your brain like it has unlimited power and start treating it like it has a budget. Because it does. And every decision you spend on something meaningless is a decision you cannot spend on something that matters. That is not philosophy. That is biology. And here is the connection to your mental overload. Every open decision, every "I will think about that later," every unresolved maybe sitting in your mental inbox is consuming background processing power. Your brain does not close tabs. It keeps them running. Just like a computer with 70 browser windows open, you slow down. You heat up. You crash. Not because any single tab is heavy, because all of them together exceed your processing capacity. The average person has between 30 and 100 open decision loops running at any given moment. Should I take that job? Should I end that relationship? Should I respond to that message? Should I start that side project? Should I confront that colleague? Every single one of those unresolved loops is eating your battery in the background, even when you are not consciously thinking about them. So you feel tired. You feel foggy. You feel like your mind is loud. And you blame it on stress. You blame it on work. You blame it on not sleeping enough. But the real culprit is not what you are doing. It is what you are not deciding. The weight is in the open loops. And the only way to close them is to decide. Yes or no. Do it or drop it. Commit or release. The answer almost does not matter. What matters is that the loop closes and your brain gets the resource back. Drop the weight or burn out. You now know that your mind is loud because it is carrying thousands of unnecessary decisions. You know that your cognitive battery is finite and non-negotiable. And you know that the architecture of your daily choices is either protecting that battery or draining it dry. But there is one specific behavior that drains it faster than almost anything else. And it is something you probably did this week without realizing the damage. You told someone about a goal you have not started yet. And in doing so, you triggered a neurological hijack that made it almost impossible to follow through. In the next chapter, you're going to learn exactly how that works and why the most dangerous thing you can do with your ambition is talk about it. Chapter 4. Stop telling people your plans. Every time you announce a goal out loud, your brain quietly checks it off as complete. That is not a metaphor. That is not a motivational soundbite. That is a measurable neurological event. And it is sabotaging your life in a way you cannot feel happening. You did it this week. Maybe you told a friend you were going to start waking up earlier. Maybe you posted on social media about a new project you were launching. Maybe you sat at dinner and told your partner about the business idea that had been buzzing in your head for months. And in that moment, something felt good. Something felt real. You felt momentum. You felt like things were finally moving. They were not. What you felt was a dopamine hit. The same neurochemical reward your brain releases when you actually accomplish something. Except you had not accomplished anything. You had only talked about accomplishing something. And your brain, in its ancient and imperfect wiring, could not tell the difference. This phenomenon has a name. Psychologist Peter Gallwitzer at New York University has been studying it since the 1980s. In a landmark series of experiments, Gallwitzer and his colleagues demonstrated what he calls social reality. When a person announces an intention to others, and that announcement is acknowledged, the person's mind registers the goal as partially achieved. The identity shift that was supposed to come from doing the work arrives instead from declaring the work. The brain gets its reward, and the motivation to actually execute collapses. In one of Gallwitzer's most cited studies, published in Psychological Science in 2009, participants were divided into two groups. Both groups wrote down a personal goal. One group announced their goal to the room. The other group kept it private. Then both groups were given 45 minutes to work toward their goal. The group that had announced their intention quit an average of 33% earlier than the group that stayed silent. And here is the detail that should shake you. When asked afterward, the announcers reported feeling closer to their goal than the silent group, despite having done less work. They felt like they were further along. They were not. They were further behind. But the dopamine had already told them the story they wanted to hear. This is dopamine hijacking, and it is one of the most insidious forms of mental weight you are carrying without knowing it. Let me break down the mechanism so you understand exactly what is happening inside your skull when you open your mouth about your plans. Dopamine is not a pleasure chemical. That is the popular misconception. Dopamine is an anticipation chemical. Neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman at Stanford University's School of Medicine has explained this with precision across his research and lectures. Dopamine rises not when you receive the reward, but when you expect the reward. It is the fuel of pursuit, the engine of wanting. When dopamine spikes, you feel motivated. When it drops, you feel flat. And the critical detail is this. Your brain does not distinguish between dopamine generated by real progress and dopamine generated by the illusion of progress. So when you tell someone your plan and they respond with excitement, your dopamine spikes. Your brain interprets their approval as evidence that the goal is underway. The anticipation circuit fires. You feel the satisfaction of forward motion. And then something catastrophic happens. The motivational drive that was supposed to push you from intention to execution dissipates. Because why would you chase a reward you already feel like you have? This is why you have had the same 3 goals for the last 2 years. Not because you lack discipline. Not because you are afraid of failure. Because every time the motivation builds, you leak it through your mouth. You trade execution energy for social validation. And you do it so consistently, so automatically, that you have normalized the cycle. Dream, announce, feel good, stall. Dream, announce, feel good, stall. Repeat until you are 45 and wondering where the decade went. The average person uses their goals as social currency. They talk about what they are going to do because it feels productive. It generates conversation. It earns admiration. It gives them something to be in the eyes of others without requiring them to actually become anything. And the dopamine economy rewards them for it every single time. Like, comment, "That is amazing, I am so proud of you." All before a single action has been taken. Elite performers operate under a different rule entirely. They treat their goals like classified intelligence. Not because they are secretive by nature, because they understand the neuroscience of premature reward. They know that every word spoken about an unfinished goal is fuel burned without mileage. They protect their dopamine for the moments that matter, the moments of actual execution, actual progress, actual completion. They let the work speak because they understand that when the mouth speaks first, the hands rarely follow. There is a phrase attributed to various sources throughout history, but the principle is ancient. Move in silence. Let your results make the noise. It sounds like wisdom. It is actually neuroscience. Silence preserves the dopamine gradient. It keeps the wanting alive, and wanting is the fuel. Now here is where this connects directly to your mental overload. Every goal you have announced but not started is an open loop in your brain. Remember the open loops from the last chapter. Every one of them consumes background processing power. So not only did announcing the goal rob you of execution motivation, it also added cognitive weight. You now carry the awareness that you said you would do something and have not done it. That awareness generates low-grade guilt, which generates rumination, which generates more mental noise, which makes your mind louder. You did not just lose the dopamine, you gained the weight. This is a double tax. You pay once by losing your motivational fuel. You pay again by adding an unresolved commitment to your mental backpack. And the interest compounds. Because the longer the gap between your announcement and your action, the heavier that loop becomes. It goes from, "I have not started yet," to, "I am the kind of person who says things and does not follow through." And now it is not just a goal problem. It is an identity problem. It is writing code into your self-concept that says you are unreliable, that you are all talk, that your words mean nothing, even to yourself. And you wonder why your mind is loud. Let me give you the protocol. Starting now, you operate under a new rule. It has 3 parts. Part 1. If you have not started it, you do not speak it. No exceptions. Not to your partner. Not to your best friend. Not to your social media followers. The goal stays internal until there is measurable evidence of action. Not intention. Action. You do not announce the gym membership. You announce the 15th workout. You do not announce the business plan. You announce the first paying customer. Part 2. Redirect the energy. When you feel the urge to tell someone about a goal, recognize that urge for what it is. It is your dopamine system looking for a shortcut. Instead of speaking, do the smallest possible action toward the goal. Send 1 email. Write 1 paragraph. Make 1 call. Register 1 domain. Anything that converts the anticipation energy into execution energy. Feed the wanting into the work, not into the conversation. Part 3. Audit your current announcements. Think about the goals you have already told people about. The ones sitting in the social record, acknowledged but unfinished. You have 2 options with each one. Either take action within the next 48 hours or consciously release it. Tell yourself, clearly and without judgment, that is no longer active. Close the loop. Free the resource. Stop paying cognitive rent on a commitment you are not honoring. This is not about being antisocial. This is not about hiding your life from the people you love. This is about understanding that your mouth has a direct line to your dopamine system, and every time you use it to talk about what you have not done, you chemically undermine your ability to do it. That is not weakness. That is wiring. And now that you know how the wiring works, you can stop letting it run your life. Drop the weight or burn out. You now understand the snooze button war. You understand decision fatigue. And you understand dopamine hijacking. 3 forces that are making your mind loud without your permission. But there is a 4th force, and it is the most fundamental of all. It is the voice inside your head that says, "I do not feel like it." That voice has been steering your life for years. And in the next chapter, you're going to learn why your mood is the worst advisor you have ever listened to, and what to consult instead. Chapter 5. Mood is a liar. Decide from identity. The worst time to make a decision is when you feel like making one. Read that again. Let it settle. Because that single sentence contradicts everything you have been taught about trusting yourself, following your heart, and going with your gut. And it is one of the most important truths you will ever absorb. Your mood is not your compass. Your mood is weather. It shifts every few hours based on what you ate, how you slept, who you spoke to, what you scrolled past, and whether or not the sun is out. It is reactive. It is temporary. It is chemically manufactured by a brain that is constantly interpreting signals it does not fully understand. And yet, you have been handing this volatile, unreliable, minute-to-minute emotional weather system the keys to your most important decisions. You wake up feeling motivated, so you commit to a new project. You wake up feeling flat, so you abandon the project you committed to yesterday. You feel excited about a person, so you say yes. You feel anxious about a conversation, so you avoid it for 3 weeks. You feel energized at 10 in the morning, so you overload your schedule. You feel drained at 3 in the afternoon, so you cancel everything and scroll for an hour. This is not decision-making. This is emotional pinball. And every bounce adds weight to your mental load because your brain is tracking the inconsistency even when you are not. A 2014 study published in the journal Cognition and Emotion by researchers at the University of Toronto found that individuals who made daily decisions primarily based on their current emotional state showed significantly higher levels of decision regret, lower goal consistency, and greater overall psychological distress compared to those who used stable personal values as their decision anchor. The emotional deciders were not less intelligent. They were not less ambitious. They simply had no fixed reference point. Every decision was a fresh negotiation with whatever feeling happened to be loudest at the moment. And that inconsistency drained them. This is the core of your overload, not the volume of decisions. The instability of the foundation you are making them from. When your decisions come from mood, every choice requires full cognitive processing. Should I go to the gym? Depends on how I feel. Should I have that difficult conversation? Depends on whether I feel brave enough today. Should I wake up early? Depends on whether my body feels ready. The brain has to run the full calculation every single time, because there is no pre-existing answer. There is no default. There is only the mood, and the mood changes by the hour. Now contrast that with what happens when decisions come from identity. Identity-based decision-making does not ask how you feel. It asks who you are. And the answer to that question does not change because you slept badly or because someone cut you off in traffic. It is a fixed point, a stable architecture, a foundation that holds weight without cracking. Let me show you the difference in real time. The alarm goes off at 5:30 in the morning. The mood-based person opens their eyes, checks the internal weather report, and finds cloudiness. Tired, not feeling it. Maybe tomorrow. Snooze. The identity-based person opens their eyes, feels the exact same fatigue, the exact same resistance, and asks one question. Am I the person who gets up? The answer was decided weeks ago. The feet hit the floor. Same conditions, same body, same brain chemistry, completely different outcome. Not because one person has more willpower, because one person has a reference point that does not move. Dr. James Clear, whose research on habit formation has been cited across behavioral psychology, frames this as the difference between outcome-based habits and identity-based habits. In his analysis, people who say, "I am trying to quit smoking," fail at dramatically higher rates than people who say, "I am not a smoker." The behavioral target is the same. The neurological mechanism is entirely different. When you frame a decision as an action you are attempting, your brain treats it as optional. When you frame it as an expression of who you are, your brain treats it as a fact. Facts do not require willpower. They require acknowledgement. This is identity congruence, the alignment between your declared identity and your daily actions. And when that alignment is tight, your mental load drops dramatically. Because congruent decisions do not create noise. There is no internal debate. There is no negotiation. There is no loop. You know who you are. The situation presents a question. The identity provides the answer. Loop closed. Energy preserved. Mind stays quiet. When the alignment is broken, when you say one thing and do another, the noise explodes. Your brain detects the mismatch and flags it. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, and it was first described by Leon Festinger at Stanford in 1957. But what most people do not realize is that cognitive dissonance is not just an uncomfortable feeling. It is an active cognitive process. Your brain devotes real resources to resolving the gap between belief and behavior. It runs the conflict in the background, constantly. I said I was disciplined, but I just hit snooze for the third time. I said I was committed, but I have not opened the document in 2 weeks. I said I was healthy, but I ordered pizza again. Each of those gaps is an open loop. Each loop consumes energy. Each unit of energy consumed makes your mind louder. So now you see it. Mood-based decisions create noise at both ends. On the front end, they require full cognitive processing because there is no fixed answer. On the back end, they generate dissonance loops every time the mood-driven action contradicts the identity you claim to hold. You are paying twice. Every single time. Here is the framework that changes it. Step 1. Define 3 identity statements. Not goals, not aspirations. Statements of present identity. I am the person who does hard things when they do not feel easy. I am the person who protects their cognitive energy. I am the person who acts from decision, not from mood. Write them. Memorize them. These are not affirmations. These are operating parameters. They define the boundaries of your behavior regardless of how you feel on any given Tuesday. Step 2. Install the identity checkpoint. Before any decision that matters, before saying yes or no to a commitment, before reacting to an emotional trigger, before choosing between comfort and growth, pause for 3 seconds and run the check. What would the person I declared do in this situation? Not what do I feel like doing. What would that person do? Let the identity answer. Then follow the answer. No negotiation. No amendment based on current emotional conditions. Step 3. Accept the discomfort. Identity-based living is not comfortable. It will frequently require you to act against your mood. You will feel resistance. That resistance is not a signal that you are doing the wrong thing. It is a signal that you are overriding an old pattern. The mood is fighting for control. Your job is to let it fight and choose anyway. Over time, the resistance weakens. Not because the mood disappears, because the identity becomes louder than the mood. And once identity wins consistently, the noise level in your head drops to a level you have not experienced in years. This is the shift. This is the pivot point of the entire book. Everything before this chapter was diagnosis. Everything after this chapter is architecture. You now understand why your mind is loud. You understand the overload. You understand the snooze button war. You understand decision fatigue. You understand dopamine hijacking. And now you understand the deepest layer, that your decisions have been running on weather instead of bedrock. The average person consults their feelings before every action and wonders why their life is inconsistent. The elite consult their identity and execute with terrifying consistency, regardless of the internal weather report. You are not going to feel like doing most of the things that matter. That is a permanent condition of being human. The question has never been whether you feel like it. The question has always been whether you are going to let a chemical fluctuation in your prefrontal cortex override the person you decided to become. Drop the weight or burn out. Your identity is now defined. Your decision-making has a fixed point, but there is still noise. External noise. The notifications, the inputs, the constant stream of information that floods your brain before you even ask for it. In the next chapter, you're going to learn the silence protocol, a systematic method for engineering quiet into a world that profits from keeping you overwhelmed. And once you install it, you will hear your own thoughts clearly for the first time in years. Chapter 6. The Silence Protocol. 1 year from now, imagine this. You wake up and your mind is quiet. Not empty, not numb. Quiet. The way a clean room is quiet. Everything in its place. No clutter on the floor. No noise from things that do not belong there. You can hear your own thoughts. Not the anxious ones. Not the recycled ones. Your actual thoughts. The ones that tell you what matters, what to build, what to protect, and what to let go. That is not a fantasy. That is an engineering outcome. And this chapter is the blueprint. Your mind is not naturally loud. It became loud. It was made loud by a world that discovered something profitable. Your attention is worth money. Every notification on your phone, every autoplay video, every red badge on an app icon, every breaking news alert, every email that could have been a sentence but was 3 paragraphs instead. All of it was designed by teams of engineers and behavioral psychologists to capture your cognitive bandwidth and hold it hostage for as long as possible. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a business model. Former Google design ethicist Tristan Harris, who went on to co-found the Center for Humane Technology, testified before the United States Senate in 2019 that the major technology platforms employ what he calls a race to the bottom of the brainstem. Their algorithms are optimized not for your well-being, but for your engagement. And engagement, neurologically, means hijacking your dopamine system so you keep scrolling, keep clicking, keep consuming. Every time you pick up your phone to check one thing and 20 minutes vanish, that was not an accident. That was the system working exactly as it was designed to work. And every minute it works, your mental load increases. Because your brain does not have a spam filter. It processes what you feed it. A 2023 study from the University of Texas at Austin found that the mere presence of a smartphone within visual range, even if it is face down and silenced, reduced available cognitive capacity by an average of 10%. Not using the phone, not touching it, just having it near you. Your brain allocates attention to the device even when you are actively trying to ignore it, because it has learned that the device might deliver a reward at any moment. That anticipation alone eats processing power. So your mind is loud because the inputs are loud. You have been living with the cognitive equivalent of a fire alarm running in the background at all times, and you have adapted to it so completely that you think the ringing is normal. It is not normal. It is damage. And now we are going to fix it. The silence protocol is not a meditation practice. It is not a digital detox weekend that you will abandon by Tuesday. It is a permanent restructuring of your information environment designed to reduce cognitive noise at the source. It has 4 layers. Layer 1, the input audit. Tonight, you are going to do something uncomfortable. You are going to open your phone's screen time data and look at the truth. Not the story you tell yourself about how you use your phone. The actual data. How many hours? How many pickups? Which apps? Which times of day? According to a 2024 report by data analytics firm Harmony Healthcare IT, the average American checks their phone 144 times per day. Each check is a micro-decision. Each micro-decision pulls from your cognitive battery. That is 144 withdrawals from an account that was already overdrawn by noon. After you see the data, classify every app into one of three categories. Category 1, tools. These are apps that serve a specific function and do not generate unsolicited input. Calculator, maps, banking, calendar. These stay. Category 2, feeds. These are apps that deliver an infinite scroll of content designed to capture attention. Social media, news aggregators, short-form video platforms. These get moved off your home screen immediately. Not deleted unless you are ready. Moved to a folder on the last page, behind 2 taps of friction. Because behavioral research from University College London shows that even small increases in friction, as little as adding 1 extra step to access a behavior, reduce the frequency of that behavior by up to 40%. You are not relying on willpower. You are engineering the environment. Category 3, parasites. These are apps you have not opened in 30 days, but that still send you push notifications. Delete them tonight. Every notification from a parasite app is a hand reaching into your skull and rearranging furniture. Layer 2, the notification purge. Open your phone settings, go to notifications, and turn off every single push notification except calls and text messages from real humans. Every single one. Email notifications, gone. Social media notifications, gone. News alerts, gone. App update badges, gone. This will feel violent. Your brain will resist it because it has been conditioned to treat every ping as urgent. But here is the reality that a 2021 study from Carnegie Mellon University's Human-Computer Interaction Institute confirmed. 91% of phone notifications are not time-sensitive. They are engagement traps. They exist to pull you back into the app, not to deliver information you need. By disabling them, you are not missing anything. You are reclaiming the cognitive bandwidth that was being stolen from you 60, 80, 100 times a day. From now on, you check information on your schedule, not on theirs. You decide when to open email. You decide when to look at social media. You decide when to consume news. The apps lose their ability to interrupt your thoughts, and your thoughts, for the first time in perhaps years, get to complete themselves without being fractured mid-sentence by a vibration in your pocket. Layer 3, the first-hour fortress. The first 60 minutes of your day are now sacred territory. No phone, no email, no news, no social media, no input from the outside world that you did not specifically choose. This is non-negotiable. Here is the neuroscience. When you wake up, your brain transitions from theta brainwave state, which is the deeply relaxed wave pattern of sleep, to alpha and then beta states, which are progressively more alert and focused. That transition takes roughly 60 to 90 minutes. During that window, your brain is in a state of heightened neuroplasticity, meaning it is more receptive to programming than at any other point in the day. Whatever you feed it during that window sets the neurological agenda for the hours that follow. If the first thing you feed it is email, you are programming your brain to be reactive. If the first thing you feed it is social media, you are programming it for comparison and distraction. If the first thing you feed it is news, you are programming it for anxiety. But if the first thing you feed it is silence, intention, and your own chosen priorities, you are programming it for clarity, for focus, for identity-congruent action. The first-hour fortress is not about productivity. It is about who gets to program your brain, you or the algorithm. Layer 4, the evening shutdown ritual. Your mind is loudest at night because it never received the signal that the day is over. You go from work to email to dinner to screen to bed, and your brain never gets a clean close. Every open tab, every unresolved conversation, every pending task bleeds into your sleep architecture and generates the kind of low-grade cognitive noise that makes you wake up feeling like you never rested. The shutdown ritual is simple and takes less than 10 minutes. At a fixed time each evening, you do three things. First, you write down every open loop in your head, not to solve them, to externalize them. Research by Dr. Baumeister and E.J. Masacampo, published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology in 2011, found that simply writing down unfinished tasks significantly reduced the cognitive intrusion of those tasks. Your brain does not need the problem solved. It needs to know the problem is captured somewhere it will not be forgotten. The paper holds the weight. Your brain lets it go. Second, you define the single most important task for tomorrow morning. Just one. This gives your brain a clear target for when it wakes up, which reduces the decision load before the day even begins. Third, you say a closing phrase out loud. Something as simple as, "The day is done." This is not woo. This is a cognitive boundary marker. Your brain needs a signal that the processing period has ended. Without it, the machine keeps running while you are trying to sleep. These four layers, the input audit, the notification purge, the first-hour fortress, and the evening shutdown, are the silence protocol. Individually, each one reduces noise. Together, they transform your cognitive environment from a chaotic open floor plan into a quiet, organized workspace where your actual thinking can happen. The average person lives in an unfiltered information flood and wonders why their mind never shuts up. The elite build walls, gates, and filters around their attention because they understand that silence is not something you find. It is something you build. Drop the weight or burn out. Your information environment is now under your control. Your inputs are filtered. Your mornings are protected. Your nights have a clean close. But a quiet mind is only half the equation. You still need to operate in a world that demands output, decisions, commitments, performance. In the next chapter, you are going to learn how to build a decision system so clean and so automated that your brain stops wasting fuel on the things that do not matter and starts operating at full capacity on the things that do. Chapter 7. Build a system, not a schedule. MIT's Cognitive Science Laboratory published a finding in 2018 that should have rewritten every time management book on the market. Their research team, led by Dr. Earl Miller, one of the world's leading experts on divided attention and working memory, demonstrated that the human brain cannot actually multitask. What it does instead is switch rapidly between tasks, and every single switch carries a cost. A measurable, quantifiable cost in cognitive performance, accuracy, and processing speed. The brain does not run parallel operations. It runs serial operations with the illusion of parallelism. And each context switch burns fuel from the same limited reservoir you have been learning about throughout this book. The implication is devastating for the way most people organize their lives. Because most people do not build systems. They build schedules. And a schedule, no matter how color-coded and neatly organized, is not a system. A schedule tells you when to do things. A system tells you how to make decisions about what to do so that your brain stops burning energy on the question. Here is the difference in practice. A schedule says 9 to 10, work on proposal. 10 to 11, team meeting. 11 to 12, respond to emails. That looks organized. It feels productive. But every transition between those blocks requires your brain to perform a full context switch. Close the proposal's mental model. Load the meeting's social dynamics. Close the meeting. Load the email inbox. Each switch costs you. And according to Dr. Gloria Mark at the University of California, Irvine, whose 2 decades of research on workplace attention were published in her 2023 book and supporting peer-reviewed studies, it takes an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds to fully re-engage with a task after an interruption or switch. Not to start the task again, to reach the same depth of cognitive engagement you had before the switch. So your schedule says you have 8 productive hours. Your brain says you have maybe 3 because the other 5 were consumed by switching costs. And you end the day exhausted, feeling like you worked hard but produced surprisingly little. That is not a discipline problem. That is an architecture problem. A system solves this by removing the decision layer entirely. Let me give you the framework. It is called decision architecture, and it operates on 3 principles: predecide, batch, and protect. Principle 1. Predecide. Every recurring decision in your life should be made once and then automated, not decided fresh each day. You already heard about this in Chapter 3 with clothing and meals. But decision architecture goes much deeper. Pre-decide your work priorities the night before. Not a to-do list. A single priority. The one task that, if completed, makes the day a success regardless of what else happens. Pre-decide your meeting policy. What types of meetings do you accept? What is the minimum value threshold? What days are open for meetings and what days are sealed? Pre-decide your communication windows. When do you check email? When do you respond to messages? When are you reachable and when are you in deep work? Each of these pre-decisions removes a live choice from tomorrow's cognitive load, and the cumulative effect is enormous. Research from the Harvard Business Review's 2018 study of high-performing executives found that leaders who pre-decided at least 5 categories of recurring choices reported 27% more available mental energy for strategic thinking than those who decided in real time. 27%. That is not a marginal gain. That is the difference between a leader who sees around corners and a leader who is constantly reacting to what is right in front of them. Principle 2. Batch. Batching means grouping similar cognitive tasks into dedicated blocks so your brain loads one mental model and stays in it. Instead of checking email 17 times across the day, you process email in 2 blocks. Instead of scattering meetings randomly, you compress them into 2 designated days. Instead of switching between creative work and administrative work every 45 minutes, you dedicate mornings to creation and afternoons to administration. The neuroscience behind batching is straightforward. When you perform similar tasks in sequence, your brain maintains the same neural activation pattern throughout. The switching cost drops to nearly zero because you are not switching, you are deepening. And depth is where your best work happens. Not in the first 5 minutes of touching a task, but in the uninterrupted stretch that follows, when your prefrontal cortex is fully loaded and running at peak efficiency. Cal Newport, computer science professor at Georgetown University and researcher on deep work and productivity, analyzed the work patterns of high-output knowledge workers across multiple industries and found a consistent pattern. The highest producers did not work more hours than their peers. They worked in longer, uninterrupted blocks, some as short as 90 minutes, some as long as 4 hours. But the common element was the absence of context switching during those blocks. No email, no messages, no meetings, just sustained cognitive engagement on a single type of task. You do not need more time. You need fewer switches. Principle 3. Protect. This is the principle most people fail at because it requires saying no. Protecting your decision architecture means defending the boundaries you have built against the constant pressure of other people's urgencies. Here is a truth that will save your career and possibly your health. Other people's emergencies are not your emergencies. The colleague who sends an urgent email at 9:15 does not get to override your deep work block. The client who wants a meeting today does not get to collapse your batching structure. The friend who calls during your first-hour fortress does not get to breach the wall. Not because these people do not matter, because your architecture matters more. Without it, you are back to 60 open loops, 35,000 unstructured decisions, and a mind so loud you cannot hear yourself think. The average person builds a schedule and then lets everyone else destroy it. They spend Sunday evening organizing a beautiful plan for the week, and by Monday at noon, every block has been rearranged by someone else's request. They say yes to everything because saying no feels harder in the moment. And so they live in permanent reactive mode, never executing their own priorities because they are too busy servicing other people's. Elite performers protect their architecture with the same ferocity that they protect their income, because they understand that cognitive energy is more scarce than money. You can always earn more money. You cannot manufacture more executive function. Once the battery is drained for the day, it is drained. And no amount of caffeine, no amount of ambition, no amount of guilt-driven overtime will bring it back. Only sleep resets the system. And tomorrow's battery will be stolen too unless the architecture holds. So here is how you protect. You install what I call the default no. Starting this week, every new request that arrives, whether it is a meeting, a commitment, a favor, or an invitation receives a default answer of no. Not a permanent no, a default no. It means the answer is no unless the request passes a filter. And the filter has only two questions. Does this align with my declared identity? And does this protect or threaten my decision architecture? If the answer to both is yes, you consider it. If either answer is no, you decline. Politely, without guilt, without lengthy explanation. I appreciate the invitation, but I cannot take that on right now. That sentence, practiced and deployed consistently, will recover more cognitive energy than any productivity app ever created. Now let me connect all three principles to your mental load. Predeciding removes future decisions from your brain before they arrive. Batching eliminates switching costs that silently devour your cognitive battery. Protecting stops external forces from collapsing the structure you built. Together, these three principles do not just organize your time. They quiet your mind. Because a mind that knows what it is doing next and trusts that the system will hold does not need to run the background calculations. It does not need to keep 47 tabs open. It does not need to rehearse, worry, renegotiate, or second guess. It can focus. And focus, in a world designed to fragment your attention, is the ultimate competitive advantage. The average person manages their time. The elite manage their decisions. And the gap between those two approaches is the gap between burnout and breakthrough. Drop the weight or burn out. Your decision architecture is now in place. Your inputs are filtered. Your identity is defined. Your mornings are protected and your evenings are closed. But there is one more element that most high performers miss entirely, and it is the fuel that keeps the entire system running. It is not motivation. It is not discipline. It is something so small that you have probably been dismissing it your entire career. And in the next chapter, you're going to learn why the smallest victories carry the biggest neurochemical payoff, and how to use that chemistry to build unstoppable momentum. Chapter 8. The Chemistry of Small Wins. A 2-minute task can change your neurochemistry for 4 hours. That is not a coaching metaphor. That is measurable brain science. And if you understand why, you will never again underestimate the power of doing something small. Here is what happens in your brain when you complete a task, any task, no matter how trivial. Your nucleus accumbens, the brain's primary reward center, releases a burst of dopamine. Simultaneously, your prefrontal cortex registers a sense of closure, what researchers call a completion signal. That signal tells your brain something critical. You are the kind of person who finishes things. The loop closes, the cognitive weight lifts, and the dopamine does not just make you feel good for a moment. It primes the motivational circuitry for the next action. It creates a neurological appetite for more completion. This is the mechanism behind momentum, not the motivational poster version of momentum, the neurochemical version. Dr. Teresa Amabile, a professor at Harvard Business School, spent over 15 years studying what drives sustained performance in knowledge workers. Her research, published in a landmark paper in the Harvard Business Review and expanded in her book on inner work life, analyzed nearly 12,000 daily journal entries from 238 professionals across 26 project teams. The finding that emerged was so consistent it became the central thesis of her work. The single most powerful driver of positive inner work life, more than recognition, more than incentives, more than strategic clarity, was the sense of making progress on meaningful work. Not completing the project, not shipping the product, making progress, moving forward by even a small amount. She called it the progress principle, and the data was overwhelming. On days when employees reported a small win, they were significantly more likely to report positive emotions, higher intrinsic motivation, and more favorable perceptions of their work and their colleagues. On days when they reported a setback, even a minor one, everything inverted. Motivation dropped. Creativity declined. Perception of the workplace soured. The same person, the same job, the same environment. The only variable was whether progress happened or not. Now here is why this matters for your mental load. When you are stuck, when you have not completed anything, when your day is a blur of half-started tasks and unresolved commitments, your brain gets no completion signals. Zero dopamine bursts from progress. zero closure. And without that fuel, the motivational circuitry stalls. You feel flat. You feel heavy. You feel like something is wrong with you, but you cannot name it. Nothing is wrong with you. Your reward system is starving. This is the trap that high-functioning professionals fall into more than almost anyone else. Because their tasks are large, their projects are complex, their goals have timelines measured in months or years. And so they go days, sometimes weeks, without a single completion signal. They are doing important work. They are making real progress. But the progress is invisible to the reward system because it never reaches a discrete finish line. The brain does not care about your quarterly targets. It cares about loops opening and loops closing. If no loops close, no dopamine fires. And if no dopamine fires, the machine grinds to a halt. The average professional stacks massive tasks and wonders why they feel paralyzed. They stare at write the business plan on their to-do list for 11 days, feeling worse about themselves each morning. The task is too large to generate a completion signal. It just sits there, an open loop of guilt and cognitive drag, leaking energy in the background. They interpret the paralysis as laziness. It is not laziness. It is a mismatch between task structure and neurological design. Elite performers never let this happen. They break every significant project into what I call micro-completions, tasks so small that they can be finished in 2 to 15 minutes. Not because they are not capable of sustained effort, because they understand that the sustained effort needs fuel, and the fuel comes from the closing of loops. Write one paragraph of the business plan. Done. Completion signal. Dopamine. Send one email to a potential partner. Done. Completion signal. Dopamine. Draft the outline for the presentation. Done. Completion signal. Dopamine. Each micro-completion adds fuel. Each burst of fuel makes the next task easier. The snowball rolls. And by the end of the day, they have accomplished more than the person who stared at the massive task for 8 hours. Not because they worked harder, but because they engineered a neurochemical tailwind. Here's the protocol. Every morning, after you define your single most important task from the evening shutdown ritual in Chapter 6, break that task into 3 micro-completions. 3 small, finishable actions that collectively advance the priority. Not 3 major milestones. 3 tiny closable loops. If the priority is prepare the investor presentation, the 3 micro-completions might be outline the 5 key slides, draft the opening hook, and pull 3 supporting data points. Each one takes 10 minutes or less. Each one closes a loop. Each one gives your brain the dopamine signal it needs to load the next one willingly. Start with the smallest, not the most important. The smallest, because the first completion of the day sets the cascade in motion. A 2016 study from the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School found that participants who completed a trivially easy task at the beginning of an experimental work session performed significantly better on subsequent harder tasks than those who started with the most challenging task first. The easy win did not just feel good. It measurably improved cognitive performance on everything that followed. The researchers attributed this to a boost in self-efficacy, the belief in one's own ability to execute, which is itself one of the strongest predictors of sustained performance. This is why making your bed matters. Not because a made bed changes your life, because the act of completing one small task the moment you wake up sends the first completion signal of the day. It tells your brain, we finish things, and the brain responds by making the next finish easier. Now here is the connection that pulls the entire system together. The snooze button war from Chapter 2 was about the first identity signal. The chemistry of small wins is about the first momentum signal. Together, they form the foundation of your morning, identity confirmation plus progress activation. Your feet hit the floor because of who you are. Your first micro-completion fires the engine that carries you through the rest of the day. These are not 2 separate strategies. They are the same system operating on 2 levels of your neurology. And there is a compounding effect that makes this even more powerful over time. Dr. B.J. Fogg, the founder of the Behavior Design Lab at Stanford University, demonstrated through his research on habit formation that when small behaviors are consistently followed by a positive emotional reward, which in this case is the dopamine burst from completion, those behaviors become automatic faster than any other method of habit building. Not faster by a small margin, dramatically faster. His research showed that tiny habits anchored to a reward response could become automatic in as few as 3 to 5 days, compared to the commonly cited 66-day average for traditional habit formation. This means the micro-completion protocol does not just give you momentum today. It builds momentum infrastructure. Each day you practice the 3 micro-completions, the pattern gets easier to initiate. Within a week, your brain begins anticipating the reward before you even start the first task. The motivational resistance drops. The cognitive cost of starting drops. And the feeling of being stuck, the paralysis that plagues every ambitious person who has tried to think their way into action, dissolves. Not because you found motivation, because you engineered it. The average person waits to feel motivated before they start. The elite start in order to generate the motivation. And the vehicle they use is the smallest possible unit of completion, not the grand gesture, not the heroic sprint. The 2-minute task that closes a loop, fires a signal, and rolls the snowball 1 inch further. Drop the weight or burn out. Your reward system is now fed. Your momentum is engineered, not hoped for. Your mornings have both an identity signal and a progress signal. But there is one more transformation left before the final test. Because everything you have built so far, the silent mind, the decision architecture, the identity framework, the momentum engine, all of it will be tested. Pressure will come. Setbacks will arrive. And the question that separates those who collapse from those who evolve is not whether they can avoid the pressure. It is whether they can grow from it. In the next chapter, you're going to learn what it means to become anti-fragile, and why the goal was never to protect yourself from stress, but to become the kind of person that stress cannot break. Chapter 9. The Mirror Test, Antifragile or Ash. The goal was never to avoid pressure. If that is what you came here for, you picked the wrong book. The goal was to become the kind of person that pressure cannot break, not resilient. Resilient means you take the hit and recover. That is survival. What you need is anti-fragility, a concept defined by risk analyst Nassim Nicholas Taleb in his groundbreaking work on systems that gain from disorder. Anti-fragile means you take the hit and come back stronger than you were before the hit landed. The pressure does not just fail to destroy you. It upgrades you. Your bones work this way. Apply controlled stress, and they increase density. Your muscles work this way. Tear the fiber under load, and it rebuilds thicker, harder, more capable. Your immune system works this way. Expose it to a small dose of the threat, and it constructs an arsenal that did not exist yesterday. Biology does not build strength from comfort. Biology builds strength from strategic exposure to difficulty. Your mind works the same way, but only under one condition. The load must be chosen, not accumulated. Controlled, not chaotic. A surgeon performing a 12-hour operation is under enormous pressure, but it is structured pressure with clear purpose and defined boundaries. That surgeon grows. A middle manager drowning in 117 unread emails for conflicting deadlines, and a boss who changes priorities every 48 hours is under chaotic pressure with no structure. That manager burns out. Same intensity, different architecture. One produces anti-fragility. The other produces ash. Everything you have built in this book, the identity framework, the decision architecture, the silence protocol, the micro-completion engine, exists for this reason. Not to make your life easy, to make the pressure productive. Without the architecture, pressure destroys. With the architecture, pressure builds. A 2013 study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology by researchers at the University at Buffalo found that people who had experienced a moderate number of adverse life events reported better mental health, higher life satisfaction, and greater resilience than both those who experienced no adversity and those who experienced high adversity. They called it the toughening effect. The critical variable was not the absence of difficulty. It was manageable difficulty processed through adequate coping structure. Those who had the structure grew. Those who did not, broke. You now have the structure. And so we arrive at the final protocol, the mirror test. Tonight or tomorrow morning, you're going to stand in front of a mirror, not to check your appearance, to check your evidence. Look at your body, not to judge it, to read it. Your body is a physical record of every decision you have made in the last 12 months. Every meal chosen for mood instead of identity. Every workout skipped because you did not feel like it. The body does not lie. It reflects the sum of your actions, not your intentions, your actions. Look at your commitments, the projects you started and abandoned, the goals you announced and never touched, the promises you made to yourself and quietly broke when nobody was watching. Either you are the person who follows through, or you are the person who renegotiates every time discomfort arrives. Look at your mental state. Right now, after this entire book, is your mind still loud? Is the backpack still full? Or have you started dropping weight? If you have, that is not the book working. That is you working. The book gave you the architecture. You chose to stand inside it. The average person avoids the mirror. They stay in vague self-assessment, telling themselves they are doing their best without ever defining what their best looks like. They keep the picture blurry because blurry is painless. The elite stand in front of the mirror with the lights on. They look at the evidence. They accept it without excuses. And then they use it, not as punishment, as calibration. What are you going to do with all of this? Because knowledge without action is just noise. And you already have enough noise. Look at your wallet. Look at your body. Look at your unfinished projects. Those are not the products of your intentions. Those are the products of your actions. And from this moment forward, the actions change. Not because you feel ready. Not because the timing is right. Because you decided. Because the identity you declared is louder than the mood you feel. Because the architecture holds. Drop the weight or burn out. There is no third option. The choice is yours. It always was.